Hello captains, this is Kent again, and welcome to the flight show. Today I'm doing something a little different. You've been seeing I've been doing some reviews of scenery, but I wanted to particularly do an aircraft. And today I'm doing Virtualcol's CRJ series pack for Prepar3D V4, although you can fly it on Prepar3D V4 version 3 and Flight Simulator 10 and Steam Edition. That's a really popular aircraft for those that like flying the default aircraft in Flight Simulator 10 and Steam Edition. One of the more popular missions where you would have been introduced to this is the introduction to jets, but also landing at Princess Juliana. Now, let me say off, this is not a study level aircraft. However, it does offer more options than the default aircraft that was in Flight Simulator 10 and Steam Edition. So it's a little bit for everybody. Those that want study level, I think they're waiting for the version that's being released by AEROSOFT, which I believe they did have a release date. They've been putting it off and putting it off, but they're saying that the release date, I think, is September the 29th. So for those that are really into study level and want to fly the CRJ, your time is coming soon. But anyway, if this is something that I think will kind of get your fix until then. It had some issues with its speed and its auto throttle, because you know the CRJ doesn't actually have an auto throttle, but it was really hard to get the plane to slow down, even if you put out your air brakes. But I made a review on it on Simware Store, and the chief software engineer actually wrote me back and was, like, well, actually, that's actually Sim Market is where I did my review. But he wrote me back and actually, said, hey, you want to try this and this? And I did, and it helped a little, but it was still a little weird in terms of getting the speed down. But they released a patch for it, so it's clear that they listened to the people who are doing their reviews. And so it's a lot more fun to fly. So I thought we would just do a flight, and what I did is I have a flight going here from, let's see, we're going to fly from Nice in France, and we're going to go to Genoa in Italy. So this should be pretty interesting. So I'm not going to necessarily do kind of like a frugal level fully loaded sort of flight, but I'm going to give you an idea of some of its systems and everything, and kind of talk about the difference between this being a study level and what a study level might do. So why don't we just go ahead and get that started? So I'm going to request boarding here with our party people from GSX Ground Services. And what we will do here is get the door all open and ready to go. So we'll do our door open and our baggage. And we'll let them load up the aircraft while I tell you a little about it. Okay, so this particular model that we're going to be flying is the CRJ 900. It has two power plants. They produce 13,128 pounds of thrust each. And it has an automatic power reserve General Electric CF34-8C5 turbofans. Its performance, it can cruise at 476 knots. Normal cruising speed is around 495, and its max certified altitude is 41,000 feet. So this plane can actually, get up there in terms of altitude. The range with 70 passengers and reserves is 1,700 nautical miles. The extended range variant with 70 passengers can get as far as 1,999 nautical miles. So, though this is kind of like a regional jet, it is not light on its range. There are flights that come out of where I live in Tennessee, and Air Canada operates a couple of versions of this. And, they'll fly out of Tennessee all the way up to Canada. So this is not a lightweight aircraft by any means. So taking you back inside, I thought I'd take you through some of the systems. Now, just looking at the overhead, you can tell if you are familiar. Let me get the volume down just a little bit. Okay, so if you are familiar with the default aircraft in Flight Simulator 10, you can see that the overhead is already giving you more options and actionable switches and so forth. We have our external lights here, which is actually, I need to put on my nav lights since we're in the cockpit. And you can see that we have a lot more actionable switches in terms of landing lights, passenger lights, but also the systems of starting the aircraft. So now you'll see even emergency lights has an actionable switch, which I don't believe they had before. And we'll put on our seatbelt and smoking sign since the plane is getting boarded, and we'll get that jammed. So totally cool. Bags are arriving, and we'll be able to get out of here momentarily. Now, I'm not going to do air traffic control for this particular flight, but I do have traffic on, which is being provided by Ultimate Traffic Live. I've mentioned it before. I really like it. It doesn't really seem to put as much of a burden on your system for the amount of aircraft that they'll have in the air, because the way they're doing the traffic is a little different. But by the way, so I noticed when you do the open the door key, it also opens the access door where they would be loading food and so forth automatically. So if you're using your ground services, go ahead and have the food brought on the airplane. Although I think that truck is a little high. But I want to get you in the air, so I didn't want to waste too much time with the ground services. But as soon as they're done, we'll get the plane started up, pushing back and so forth. So I'll also mention, this is the scenery for Nice in France. And it actually adds a nice touch to your experience. This is a really nicely rendered airport. I wouldn't necessarily say it is on Minneapolis, St. Paul level of detail, but I like it. I like it. So we're gonna go ahead and get out of here. They're done with that. He's lowering the thing, so let's bring up our baggage doors, and we will close our cockpit, or the cabin as it were. Okay, so we're going to let them know that we are ready for pushback. And we're just going to do a straight back pushback. Okay. So to continue, while that's going on, I'll continue on with the performance of this particular variant. It weighs about 43,200 pounds. Standard maximum takeoff weight is 75,500 pounds, and its extended range takeoff weight 75,000 pounds.
Hello, Captain. We are ready for pushback.
Oh, you're ready for pushback. Great. All right, we're ready for you. Do your thing. So the capacity, it has a flight crew of 2. Typically, main cabin seating is 86 passengers, and let's see. Optionally, it can be set for 90 passengers.
Locking gear.
So this is not lightweight. It's not their largest variant. Their largest is the CRJ 1000. But we are flying Eurowings since this is Europe. I do believe that Eurowings operates out of Nice, but I really do need to research that. Okay, so we're getting ready for pushback. They'll tell us that we can start our engines. I'm just going to go ahead and do the Control E start for this particular time, because there's still a lot I need to learn about this aircraft, and time has not been on my side in terms of putting in all the studying that I need to do, even though this is not studying level. There's things that you need to know. So, we're going to go ahead and do our Control E start. And it should show here that our engines are starting up, of which they are. And we're going to get our lights going. You can't fly without your logo going on. Come on, that just would not be proper. Okay, so our left engine is starting up. There we go. We already have the flight plan loaded, by the way. So one of the things that I would like to point out about this aircraft is Virtualcol did a really good job of rendering the aircraft. It looks 10 times better than the default aircraft in Flight Simulator. I can definitely say that right off the bat. Now, there's some things that I want to point out that the the software engineer, told me when I was talking about, hey, what's the deal with the plane's handling? Right here, this is stall. I think he referred to as stall protection. You want that to be on, okay? But then you also come over here, and there's a switch. Let me zoom into it. And this is important. This, where it says spoilers, this is kind of like, it's how the plane manages the speed.
Set parking brakes.
Okay, we set the parking brake. If you want to dial in a given speed, it's going to auto adjust the spoilers so that you can get to that speed, which is important, particularly on approach, where you're trying to get the plane slowed down to, like if you're flying at cruise altitude and coming down below 10,000 feet, you got to get it under 250 knots. This is going to be necessary in doing that. So now that we've got our engines going,
Tow truck disconnected. Bypass being removed.
All right, well, give us 2 notches of flaps. And we're going to turn on our flight director, our auto throttle. Okay. So we are ready to get underway. You can see our flaps are now in position.
Left is clear. Right is clear.
All right, we are ready to go. Evidently not. Somehow I always do that a little bit too early. Okay, so let's see. Release parking brake. Make up your mind. Okay, so I think we're ready to get on our way, and we will taxi for takeoff. Now, its handling on the ground is pretty cool. I don't seem to have too much of a problem with that. However, I will let you know, I feel like the nose gear is a little bouncy. And what I mean by that is when you hit the brakes, it seems a little like your nose, the shocks, they just, they react really hard. You see the nose come down a lot, like if you were stopping your car and your front shocks brought the nose of your car down because of your momentum, changing from you hitting the brakes. It's exaggerated here. Now, do I know this for a fact that it does that in the real CRJ? I did not notice it when I was on the aircraft. I've flown these a couple of times, not flew as a pilot, but I have flown in them a couple of times, and the braking mechanism did not seem that dramatic to me. But that's just my take on it. I do not think it's a make or break by any means. It's just something that I noticed. And what I'll do is I'll tap on the brakes real fast for you to see what I'm talking about. Okay, so you did notice that, and let's see it from the outside for a second. Yeah, that seems pretty dramatic, but no big deal. Just an observation. I don't want you to ever think that my reviews are kind of like a fanboy sort of review. I try to be objective and show pros and cons. Even when I really liked the aircraft, I was excited that this was released. I literally think I saw it on Sim Market, and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I immediately went to see, well, can it fly with prepared version 4? And it said that it did, and I bought it right then. It's like, that's bad. I can't really spontaneous buy like that. Okay, so I'm just kind of bouncing here between using my track 5. So let's see. We look pretty clear on the approach. I'm going to move over. I know I'm not like going through ATC. This is totally uncalled for. But like I said, I wanted you to really see the plane in action, not so much impress you with my knowledge of flight procedures or what have you, which is, you know, minimal at best. No, I'm kidding. I'm not that bad. Nevertheless, let's just keep it going. So what they also have here, and I'll show you in just a second. I need to get into the straightaway as we are taxiing for takeoff. Let's see here. And as I said, you know, with the runway, the taxiing apron lights and the runway lights, this is really a nice airport. I'll tell you in just a second who makes this particular scenery. I just didn't want to mess it up, but okay. So now, while we're on this taxi, I wanted to show you real fast. You can actually program in your V-speeds here, and they would go in right about here, and you control your V-speeds. Where's the dial? It's actually behind the throttle, but when you, if you export your displays to an external monitor, that actually comes with this display that's right here on the right side of your panel. So it's easy to get to, but thus far I have not found that they help you calculate your V-speeds. I had to look up what the average V-speeds were, and those were what I put in, but we're not going to worry too much about that today, as I mentioned before. But I just wanted you to know. So that's another added advantage. You see, you couldn't do V-speeds with the default aircraft in Flight Simulator 10. So that's another thing that they're making an effort to be just not completely dumbed down. It's to give even a person who's more accustomed to having like the, you know, working with the MPC, working with the CDU. There are elements of that. They're not the fullest of elements, but they're elements of it, and it can kind of give you your fix, if you will, while we're waiting for study level. But if you are just a person who really doesn't want to do study level and just wants to fly, then I think you're really going to be happy with this. Okay, so before we come onto the runway, I thought I would just zoom in really fast and show you. Okay, so this is on. We want that on before takeoff. That was our spoilers, auto spoiler, for lack of a better term. And yeah, we just go, oh yeah, we'll turn on our landing lights, and we're gonna be good to go. All right, so let's just check the approach. Nobody coming. We're gonna get out of here, and let's see. Now, I won't put you through the entire flight, but I thought I would talk to you while we get up to altitude, and then we will reconvene on the approach. Yeah, the Virtualcol did a really good job in terms of rendering this aircraft. It's really nice. All right, we are now ready. Should dial up what that V-speed is for our situation. V1 is going to be 135. V2 is 150. Should have done that earlier. Sorry. I do hard with talking to you guys, but that's okay. All right. Got it down to 57, and we're rolling out. All right, here we go. Try to keep it on the center line. Positive rate of climb, gear up. Now, one thing that is a significant difference between flying study level aircraft and those that are not, particularly is navigation. If you were doing a study level aircraft like a PMDG, 737 or a Flight Sim Lab Airbus 320, you can do SID and STAR approaches. And those are, and if you're not familiar with those, they are ways that you get into and out to airports in terms of the flightways. Well, you can't really do them accurately if you don't have an ability to program them into your computer. But these type of aircraft that are not study level have a little way of cheating it. If you have that route programmed in your computer, you can put the aircraft on GPS and then turn on your autopilot, and then it'll just follow the GPS, and all you have to do is maintain the altitudes. So that's a way of going about it. So let's get our speed locked in here. I'm right now going to get the speed up to 50 knots rather. And we will get the altitude. Right now we're going for 10. And we have our speed. I think we have everything activated that we need to. Oh, right, we need nav. So what you do is you turn the aircraft, instead of from VOR to VOR, you put it on GPS, you hit the nav button, and now you're going to follow the flight path that is in your airplane, that is in your, that's programmed into your GPS, and all you have to do is manage the proper altitudes. Now, as you can see, you might notice right here, my airspeed is not kind of growing, it's declining slightly, and I want to get up to 250. So what you can manually do is go over to the autopilot function, and we can change our basically our ascension rate. So I'm going to lower it to 1,100 feet per minute, and that should get, yeah, now our speed is starting to tick up again. Great. All right, so giving you a look, and I think now, let's see, I'm gonna wait just till I can get to 180 knots, and then I'll bring the flaps up. Thought I'd give you a little last look at the outlying scenery while we're sending the altitude. Just so you know, that so the scenery that I have going on right now, I have FTX Global by Orbx, and also their OpenLC for Europe. Obviously, as I mentioned before, I had the scenery for the Nice Airport, and also I have Active Sky for Prepar3D going for the weather. So all of this is basically putting into this nice visual look, or at least I hope you think, nice visual look, and I think we're good enough. We can go ahead and raise our flaps. And what do you know, now we're actually accelerating to our speed a lot faster, so excellent. The flight model is a simple flight model, but I like study level aircraft, but I don't get annoyed by this handling. I will say that. And if you're into just getting in and flying, then I think you're really going to enjoy the CRJ series that they have released by Virtualcol. I really do. I guess I should mention, I also have effects, because you see the vortices coming from the wingtips. That particular type of vortices, I don't believe, that's not the default vortices that you would get from Prepar3D in itself. I also have on my computer VFX Central, and they have visual effects, and so I have that loaded as well, and that's kind of giving you that. It's pretty cool. Again, it's all about immersion. When I do these videos, you continually hear me talk about immersion and the things that you can add to kind of make this experience as real as possible for you. That is definitely one of the things that I really do enjoy about the immersion. Now, what I'm going to do is break away from this, and then I'm going to bring you back for the approach, and I'll see you in a few minutes. Okay, we're back. We are now at cruising altitude, but this is a really short flight, so we're going to actually be going to, entering our descent very, very soon. But I thought I would give you a little glance out of the window. Now, if you remember all the things that I had loaded, I forgot to mention I also have loaded Pilot's FS Ultimate Global Mesh. In fact, there is our destination airport, Genoa, right down there. But when you have all of this loaded, and from my previous videos, I've made suggestions. If you are going to be into general aviation, you should really invest in scenery in terms of terrain and mesh. And you should, if you're doing commercial aircraft where you're flying really high, you should invest in airports first, because you're not going to get to see the ground all that often. But I will say this, when you get to the end game and you have airports and mesh and general scenery loaded, even at 18,000 feet, this view is beautiful by comparison to the default scenery. So you're going to have something to gain, even in terrain, once you finally invest in it. But, if you want to know about my rationale to the order, please check out my previous video on knowing which scenery to buy. Okay, so now we're going to enter our descent. And I'm going to set this right now for 9,000 feet. And I'm going to bring this, just go ahead and bring down the speed to 80. Now, as you see, let's see. As you can see, our speed is starting to drop. And if I can take you outside, notice that the airfoils are automatically adjusting themselves to get you to the speed that you want. That's kind of how Virtualcol manages your airspeed. So it's not an auto throttle, but it's using the aircraft systems to control the altitude. So I thought I'd bring that up. While we're in descent, I wanted to go ahead and tell you a little about the sceneries that I was using in terms of the airport. I didn't mention it before. So flying, as I mentioned earlier, I flew out of Nice, and that is by AEROSOFT. And AEROSOFT really does make quality scenery. They have a lot of it. It's not specifically for prepared for, but I loaded it to see if it could work, and it works wonderfully. There may be some things that are not rendered, but be it that I didn't know what it was in Prepar3D, I wouldn't even know the difference. So I'm happy with it. And then also, where we're landing into, we're landing in Genoa, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And this is also by AEROSOFT, and they have a really interesting over-water approach where you're coming over an industrial site, like where they bring in tankers, not tankers, but they bring in container ships, and the containers that are brought in for commercial use. Yeah, you're going to fly over all of that. So it's really a unique approach. As I mentioned in one of my previous videos, I'm really fascinated by overwater approaches, which is why I particularly decided to use this one when it came to showing you this particular aircraft. So I hope you like that as much as I do. So a little bit about Genoa. It's in Italy. I feel a little silly when I say that, because y'all may know that, but I honestly didn't until I came across the scenery. And everybody in Italy who's like in flight simming is looking at me like, yeah, we know that, duh. But for all practical purposes, it is off it's on the southern coast. Now, when I say southern, that just means it's on the southern coast, but it's in northern Italy. So just so that I make that clear. And it's very, very close to France, which is why, as you can see, we didn't have to fly entirely too long. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take control of the aircraft pretty soon, because we really do need to get down. I honestly believe I'm using AEROSOFT electronic flight bag, and I believe that their times of descent or top of descents are a little optimistic. They have them go a lot later than they need to. So, but I think we're going to do fine in terms of our descent. We're looking good. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and bring this below 250 knots because we are approaching 10,000 feet. and the speed's dropping, rather nicely, of which it did not do before the patch was released. So, I'm happy with that. I'm really happy with that. Okay, let's give you a little look outside here. We're still a ways up, but this gives you an idea of what the aircraft looks like, and it is really nice. Yeah, we're a bit high up, just looking at it from a distance, but that's okay. We're gonna. I have a way. We're just going to go to heading select, and we're gonna just circle one good time to get our altitude down. No problem, no worries. And then we will set up for our approach. Now, what we have to remember is we were on GPS. So that we can use our ILS landing system, we need to remember to turn that back to, nav, opposed to GPS. Unless you wanted to do an RNAV approach, but this is not an RNAV approach airport, so not that I'm aware of. So that's fine. So we're just going to do one 360 turn, 360 degree loop to get our altitude down, and then we'll be ready for the approach. Again, the focus I really wanted was for you to just see the aircraft, how it handles, kind of see the eye candy of this, and plenty of eye candy there is. And you may just see it right out of the cockpit here, but oh my gosh, that scenery looks nice. That will let you forget that you're sitting in your office or your room, and just take you totally immersed in looking in the cockpit and seeing what's going on. I know I always say I'm not trying to be fanboy in my review, but I am completely happy with all the scenery that I have added to make this experience enjoyable. And it's as I've said many times before, I know that getting scenery is not an inexpensive venture. You have to save up, maybe get you a scenery, a pay period, because the sceneries are actually kind of affordable, depending on, affordable is a relative term. If you're young and you're in high school and so forth, maybe that's a lot for you, depending on if your parents give you an allowance, or, if you ask for it and you get your good grades, they'll reward you with something that you want. But if you're working, these sceneries, you can catch them on sale for under $20. Some, you just have to time it right. I really do try to find sceneries when they're on sale. That's kind of my thing. So let's see. If I look at my charts, we should be at our particular waypoint, VRAP, and that should be at 4,500 feet for our approach. So that's what we want to have here. I'm looking at my charts over to the side here, so that's why you don't necessarily see them. But as I was saying before, I understand that this can sometimes be a little daunting in terms of price, and I get that. But, set your goal. That's the first thing I say. Set your goal as to what scenery you want, and that's why I kind of laid out the rubric as to what I thought would be best in how you acquire it. But once you get that, your scenery, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I've literally waited years for this. And when I mean years, it's not just the detail of the scenery, it's the hardware. The hardware was not in pace with Flight Simulator, not even from the beginning, and now we have hardware that is, relatively affordable, that you can acquire over time, and then it can run Flight Simulator at a rate that is smooth, enjoyable, and your graphics are not turned down to the point that the world doesn't look believable. The technology has caught up with the programming, but the programming was just ahead of Flight Simulator, above the hardware. It was ahead of it, in my humble opinion. But we're getting ready for our approach here. We're looking kind of good. We need to do a little bit more turn, and I think we'll be okay. And we may have to do a bit of a loop more. Yeah, we're much better in terms of our distance from the airport, but I would like to bleed off a little bit more in our altitude. So for the waypoint where we should be, yeah, we're almost there. So anyway, not necessarily a standard approach. Wasn't the purpose of the video, so I know that going off the back. I'm kind of showing off the airplane is what I'm really doing. And the sceneries, just so it can get you like, yeah, I want my scenery to look like that, or I want to, even more so, I want my scenery to look better than that. And this is like, okay, now you have a goal as to, you know, how you want it to look. Okay, so I've been using the autopilot for my heading, but I'm going to go ahead and take control of the aircraft in just a second. Thought I'd give you a little bit of a view here. Because even I look at this sometimes and go, wow, that is nice. And I am really glad that Virtualcol made this aircraft. Again, there are those of us that really did enjoy flying the CRJ. Now, I will mention something. I really did like flying missions in Flight Simulator. Particularly like, you know, the Caribbean approach with Julianas and so forth. But that's not really what Prepar does. And I understand it's because they're for simulating and not entertainment. And you could argue that you're entertained by simulating, but you know, that's a play on, that's a nuance. You know, that's just nuance as far as I'm concerned. And I really would like to see missions. And there is now the first mission pack released for Prepar3D, and it's EasyJet by Perfect Flight. Now I need to do a review on it, but I only got one little beef with this whole thing with the missions. So in Flight Simulator, you could click a tab or check a box was more accurate, and when you check that box, you have the ability to you know, use any aircraft you wanted and not just the default aircraft that was assigned to a mission. Now, they wouldn't let you change the aircraft when you got in the mission, but what they did is they released a program that allowed you to have the aircraft of your choice that was on your free flight screen would inject that into your mission. So if you wanted to fly their mission, but you didn't want to use the Flight Simulator default aircraft, but you wanted to use instead like a study level aircraft to do, and you know, your study level navs, you could do that. And that's what I loved about it. So because sometimes we're sitting around our house trying to figure out, what airport am I going to fly to? What airport am I going to fly from? Do I want to do a long haul? Do I want to, that's too long, that's too short. The nice thing about those missions were it kind of decided it for you, and you just had to pick a mission. You could go and, you know, redo your navs if you wanted to, but it's surprising how sometimes we're sitting here indecisive trying to figure out, what airport do I want to fly from? What airport do I want to fly to? Those missions took care of it for you. And there was a sense of accomplishment when you looked at all the missions and you'd see these tabs saying, oh, flew that, flew that. That falls under my category of achievement-based learning. You know, you want to achieve things because it basically it feels good. And so I really enjoyed missions. So there were scenarios, as you know, Prepar calls them. They have scenarios, but those scenarios, there were very few, and you know, they didn't really cover a heck of a whole lot, because they're more thing of you're learning and simming flight procedure. Totally cool. But I would like to do those flight procedures in missions, if that makes sense. Well, Perfect Flight has finally addressed that, and I'm excited about it. But this is a message to Perfect Flight. Please make the adjustment such that you can use other aircraft and navs in your missions, because that makes it more accessible to everyone. Now, you might be doing this and I just don't know about it. Let me be fair. But I've sent 2 emails and you guys have not responded to me yet. Just saying. But anyway, let's get this approach in and let's get it on the ground. I'm going to go ahead and take control. No, not yet. Not yet. We're doing good. In fact, we're about to be on this approach, which is a really nice approach. And as I mentioned before, it is a very unique approach. We're going to bring our speed down to 210 knots. And very soon we should be able to intercept the localizer and we'll be flying in. All right. So, you know, I bring out there, or I'll put it out there again. I really do appreciate the people who have been following my little humble series. I don't have the following of, say, Frugal or Matt Davies, who are two of my favorite people who make flight videos for Flight Simulator. I learn a ton from them. But again, my market is a little bit more niche. As I mentioned before, I'm really trying to do videos that are targeted towards new users, to kind of fill in the blanks that you might be sitting around wondering, what are those advanced guys talking about? And that's kind of who I'm going for. But I also hope to be able to provide things for our veteran flight simmers as well. Particularly if it's a review of a new scenery and you're wondering whether you should get it or not. You know, I want to be there for that too. And so this was my chance to review this particular airplane, hoping you're liking it. Okay, it is time to get this thing down on the ground. You can turn off altitude and just do our approach. And we can bring our speed down. And we're going to let out our landing gear. So as you can see, we are intercepting the localizer. And we should be on a proper glide slope. So this is good. Now, our landing speed... Now, first off, you would normally calculate this. But I don't know if the CDU... this particular model doesn't even have it in here. I don't know if the CDU allows you to calculate it. I'm not sure. But they give you a general... hey, come on now. Bring that nose up. We're below the glide slope. Okay, here we go. So in fact, I think I'm just going to fly this manually. So let's turn off the autopilot. We're going to leave our speed regulation on though. Okay, so as I was saying, did it again, lost my train of thought. Yeah, so as I was saying, I don't know, I actually do not remember what I was talking to you about. Wow, I need coffee. Don't worry about it. We're almost there. We're going to bring our speed down. See, you have the benefit of rolling it back and going, hey, you were talking about this, but I can't do it right now. Why? Because we're live. You know? Oh, yeah. So the VREF, I don't know if this calculates it, but they give you a generic set of values. That's exactly what I was talking about. And so they're saying that their VREF for landing at flaps 20 degrees is about 145 knots. So that's what I'm putting in here. Okay, we're a little above the glide slope. I'm going to bring it down a bit. And as you can see, the plane is now kind of going into the desired speed of 145 knots. And we are on... Oh my gosh, I'm like flying in front of another plane that's on approach. Sorry about that, dude. We're doing a show here. I hope you don't mind. Don't take it personally. Alright, so let's get our altitude down. You're not supposed to come down onto the glide slope, but as again, I was telling you, I'm not doing the flight procedures per se, as I would like you to see and show off the aircraft. I will have to do a video to show off my flight skills just to let you know that I am not a complete noob. Not that there's anything wrong with being new. I'm just saying. But, alright. So, and you know, while we're on approach, I would like to also say, I have gotten some really positive feedback on my flights, and I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that. I don't want anyone to take it for granted that I take you all for granted. I really do appreciate the love that you have been giving me on these shows. And we're going to turn off our IS so we can get our speed down. I'm taking control of the throttles right now. And I also have this one key that's like really I like to use for approach, because you may not see it, but I have my displays. Okay,
Don't sync.
Get our speed up a little
Don't
bit.
sync.
I have my displays on a second
Don't
monitor
sync.
right under the screen.
Don't sync.
So I can pay attention to my depth perception. I like to zoom in a little bit on my cockpit so I can see the runway a lot better. I'm a little low, but we're doing good. We're
Don't
doing
sync.
good. All right.
Don't sync.
Angle
Don't
of
sync.
attack. It'll be a little
Don't
better.
sync.
Oh, here we go. All right, we're now on the right path. And as you can see, the scenery out of the cockpit is off the chain.
Don't sync.
I have to
Don't
remember
sync.
not to pay too much attention to it because I'm trying to land, which is why I'm actually glad I'm making this video. I can sit back and watch it and enjoy it later. Okay, so as we're coming in over the ship and the containers, you kind of see what I mean by this approach being kind of unique. Oh yeah, we're coming in nicely. Okay, we're gonna drop the airspeed. Oh, there's a plane on the runway. Ignore that plane. Do not pay attention to that plane behind the green curtain. This is what you get for not calling ATC. That's alright. This should be a nice touchdown. Alright, reverse is armed. Let's see if I can get you outside the aircraft for a minute. Yes. Reversers came out. You see the spoilers are up. And I'm going to get off this runway because I know that dude is like, I know he did not just cut in front of me like that. Well, there he goes. He didn't care. He's like, I'm out of here, dude. All right. Let's just taxi to getting out of here. Loving this airport. Loving that over water approach. Okay. I would normally have the sound up a little bit higher so that you can hear it, but some of my recordings I felt like the sound was kind of drowning out, so I didn't want to have the engines up too much. But here we go. All right. Alright, so we're just going to taxi and then we will get out of here. I hope you enjoyed this particular opportunity for me to show off the Virtualcol CRJ aircraft. It's, I feel it. I like it. It's not study level, but I don't mind things being a little bit simplistic in flight nature, although I do like the complicated ones as well. I'm kind of all over the place. I like to experience aircraft. Sometimes I feel like all the systems and all of the nuances, and sometimes I just want to get in and fly. I'm kind of a little bit of everything, and that's cool. I'm glad that there is an aircraft that can give you a little bit of something that everybody can enjoy it to some point. Now, I have not looked to see if there have been a ton of reviews on this aircraft. If there haven't, I hope I was able to bring you to something that is kind of unique in the sense that I don't want to be out here reinventing the wheel. But it's a big flight sim world, and there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people out there that enjoy it. So maybe someone has done a review on it, but if not, I hope I brought you something that'll help you decide whether you want to, use this or not. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and bring this in. Let's use our... let's see, what gate can we come into? What about 404? I guess 404 would be good as anything else. We'll do it Air Italia. Okay, now the question is, where's 404? It should be right here. Let's see. Do I see them? Yeah, there they are. I don't think this aircraft would normally come into this particular gate because as you see, those gates are set up to a specific height already, and this plane is low to the ground, so I don't really believe that we would normally be coming into this gate. But hey, you know, hey, look, a BP truck, totally cool. We're kind of still pissed at BP for that whole Gulf thing, but you know, I'm not trying to stir up no mess. All right, let's bring it in, come over a little bit. Ooh, I'm coming in fast. Chill out. Now, you saw that bounce with the nose when I hit the brakes. I'm like, oh, that's just rough. All right, a little bit closer, a little bit closer. Our ground crews, they love us. All right, and we can cut engines. All right, since we've cut the engines, I will just give you that last. What did I do? What did I do? You need to. Oh, I didn't set this. I thought I'd set the parking brake. My bad. Sorry. Should have brought the flaps up too. This is why you have checklists. But anyway, let's just go ahead and deboard. Bring our people in. So, with us deboarding our aircraft, as always, I just ask, please leave a comment, pro or con, give your feeling on the scenery that we have, about the aircraft, whether you think you might want to fly it or not. Let me know what you think of the airplane. Maybe you're going to buy it. But most importantly, please leave me a couple of likes. Please subscribe. And let me know if there is something that you'd like a review on. If I have it, I can do it immediately. If I have to purchase it, that might take a little time depending on what it is. Because this, obviously, as someone mentioned before, this is not my full-time gig. I am actually a physics professor at a university. So, as you can imagine, time gets limited when the semester starts. But this summer, had a little extra time, so I wanted to get some stuff out. But otherwise, hope you enjoyed the video, and I look forward to seeing you again in the virtual skies.